Item 10.
Item 10, proclamation recognizing Commissioner Darryl Glenn for meritorious service to citizens of El Paso County. Mark Waller, Commissioner, President Pro Tem, Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead. I was just looking at Jim. It's a little distracting.
Take your time, Jim. We'll wait on you. No, sit down, get comfortable, get a cup of coffee. No, I'm kidding. It is my honor to move the proclamation recognizing Commissioner Darryl Glenn's meritorious service to El Paso County. Whereas Commissioner Darryl Glenn was elected in 2010 to serve on the board of El Paso County Commissioners and was re-elected to serve a second term in 2014 and was selected by his peers unanimously to serve as president of the board in 2016 and 2017. And whereas prior to his service on the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Glenn had retired as a lieutenant colonel after 21 years of active duty and reserve service in the United States Air Force, followed by 7 years of service on the Colorado Springs City Council. And whereas Commissioner Glenn demonstrated great compassion through his leadership and guidance in the coordination of a broad-based public and private efforts to assist citizens to recover from the devastating Black Forest Fire, and continues to be a strong supporter of fire and flood recovery projects and fire mitigation programs. And whereas, through the establishment of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Commissioner Glenn has brought together police, prosecutors, defense lawyers, judges, social services organizations, and various community agencies to achieve better outcomes through the local criminal justice process by ensuring everyone is working collaboratively to serve justice, break the cycle of repeat offenders, preserve families, and reduce the costs associated with the county jail. And whereas Commissioner Glenn has been a fierce protector of the public process, working to ensure citizens have the opportunity to learn about issues that may impact them, their families, or their neighbors, and also have the opportunity to ask questions, voice their concerns, and share their opinions on those issues. And whereas during his time in office, Commissioner Glenn has worked effectively to improve communication and collaboration with municipalities and other governmental agencies, and to encourage long-range budgeting and planning in order to improve service to citizens and increase efficiency. And whereas Commissioner Glenn chaired the Joint Land Use Study Policy Committee, Joint Community and Military Land Use Guide for policymakers to address multiple developmental issues, including stormwater and fire mitigation needs within the area. And whereas, through his well-disciplined, healthy eating and exercise habits, Commissioner Glenn served as a positive example to those around him and gave him the energy to confront issues facing the community. And whereas Commissioner Glenn will be concluding 8 years of service and leaving office on January 8th, 2019. Now, therefore, the Board of El Paso County Commissioners hereby notes the meritorious service of Commissioner Darryl Glenn, proclaims its gratitude for all he has done, and expresses its best wishes for his future endeavors. Done this 20th day of December 2018 at Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's signed by the Board of County Commissioners, Darryl Glenn, President, Mark Waller, President Pro Tem, Stan Vanderwerf, Lojinos Gonzalez Jr., and Peggy Littleton, members, and it's attested to by our notorious clerk, Chuck Browerman.
I would like to second that.
I'm glad I've been able to help out with positive eating habits and exercise programs. You'll look like me someday if you keep it up. No, I'm kidding. Please, we'd love to hear from folks in the audience to recognize and lampoon Commissioner Glenn's service to the county over the last 8 years.
I know where you live.
And you knew this was coming, so don't even try. Commissioner Glenn, a couple things about Commissioner Glenn that we learned very quickly, or at least I learned very quickly, is when Commissioner Glenn became president of the board, He always answered his phone immediately. I mean, you called him, and it doesn't matter what time of day or night it was. But my first phone call to him was early in the morning. He's breathing pretty heavy on the phone. I got a little nervous, right? And then I found out he was working out, so I was like, thank God, I'm okay. He wasn't happy to hear from me. That's a good thing. But anytime, day or night. And if he doesn't answer the phone, within 30 minutes, he's picking up the phone and calling and saying, hey, Jim, what's going on? What do you need? The other thing I had with my relationship with him is that he told me exactly how he felt without the least mental reservation or equivocation. And I was okay with that because I returned the favor many times. And I think I have a lot of respect for that, and I appreciate the fact that I was able to tell you exactly how I felt, and then you gave me my opinion after we were done, so that's good. I ran for office, and I remember you telling me you were worried that I might embarrass the county if this turns into a fight, and I told you I wouldn't do that, and I think I kept my word. And I think that's how we started off, where, hey, you know, Jim did keep his word, and I can talk to this guy. You mentioned process in your resolution, and boy, isn't that the truth. And staff knows, and what I appreciate about process is I know that if a constituent stands up here and says, your staff did me wrong, the first thing Commissioner Glenn is going to say, did you go through the process? Right? And he's going to ask staff, did you go through the process? So it was very easy for us. Let's get through the process. And if the process doesn't work, then make an appointment with Jim and work it out, right? So we understand how that works. So, but I can appreciate the fact that that was the standard. We knew it, and we lived by it, and it was important that that was there. So thank you for that. Waldo Canyon Fire. I was in a difficult situation. As I was told, I was not allowed to talk to certain folks. And when you called me, you basically said, hey, Jim, just give me the updates when you can. And that meant a lot, because I was able to call you and say, here's what's going on, here's this. And it was always, let me know what you need. What can I get to you? What can we get on the back end? What do you need for these people? You were very active in keeping track of the impact and keeping track of what was going on, and I appreciate that. And the nice thing was, it wasn't you were calling me every 20 minutes to find out what was going on. You allowed me to call you when I was able to give you updates. And you asked some very unique questions. You listened intently, and based off of those conversations, you glommed what you thought I needed, and you were spot on. I mean, you were really listening to what we were saying, so you've got a good set of ears. Black Forest. I didn't realize I was going to be in charge of recovery until Mr. Green presented me with that recovery, and that's the gift that keeps right on giving, because I'm still working recovery 5 years later. And after Mr. Green said, now, Jim, you got recovery. I was told to go to Commissioner Glenn's office and work it out. Okay, so I walked in, and it's about 3 in the afternoon, and you said, I want a plan for recovery by tomorrow morning. Yes, sir, you got it. 3 a.m., I delivered the plan to him. But here's the deal, though. The plan was streamlined, and it was really good, right? But being the elected official that he is, he assisted me in improving the plan by increasing the size of it tenfold. But in the end, it was your plan, it was your constituents, and it was very successful. I was very proud to be part of that recovery effort. I appreciate both of your support when I transitioned from the Sheriff's Office to DPW. Thank you very much for that. I'll never forget that. And I also appreciate the 117 fire and the tire fire support that you gave me during that time frame. Now, during the Black Forest fire, you were focused on something in my vehicle. Do you remember what that was?
Oh, yes.
What was it, Commissioner?
Oh, the yellow light.
The yellow light, yeah. So I was sitting there thinking, you know, Commissioner Glenn isn't quite sure what he wants to do when you grow up, so I'm going to make a suggestion to you, okay? Can I get the overhead, please?
Oh, no.
I want to kind of show you, maybe make a suggestion, call it
Glenn
Glenn's gloves. Might be slow, but they're steady. They are Commissioner approved. Now, what's unique about this yellow light, Commissioner Glenn, is guess what? It doesn't have any instructions. We have processes. So I think this is a big seller for you. And just so you know, we do have the processes documented in this box for you. And let me open that up and kind of present that to you.
Is the light in there?
says,
I know.
this product is simple to use. If you're having problems with operation of this excellent product, please contact my staff, Mrs. Jennifer Irvine or Mr. Craig Dossey, for the appropriate process. If they're unable to assist you, then please contact Mr. Reed.
That's right. I know.
So I give to you a little yellow light.
The Golden Globe.
Oh, Lord. Thank you. Yeah, I know. That's great. That is great. Uh-oh.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Commissioners.
It better not have a Bronco thing on it.
I do not have one Bronco thing.
All right, just letting it go. Okay.
Here's a lot.
Commissioner Glenn, when I think of you, I think of leadership. I also think of someone who holds very tight to what he believes in. For instance, over the course of time, your Pittsburgh Steelers have won all of 11 games against our Denver Broncos. During that time, those Denver Broncos have won 20 games. You could have very easily flipped and become a Broncos fan, but you didn't. You held tight to what you believed in. Since you took office as commissioner, the Broncos and the Steelers have played 5 times. During that time, the Pittsburgh Steelers won 1 of those games. You still held very tight to what you believed in, and you remained a Steelers fan. In 2012, albeit probably through covered eyes, you witnessed the remarkable Tim Tebow, who has a career 79.97 quarterback rating, beat your Pittsburgh Steelers. That game occurred on Sunday, January 8th, 2012, while you were a county commissioner. You still showed up to work the next week. Of all things, Tim Tebow beat your Pittsburgh Steelers with a touchdown pass of 80 yards. I think I speak for all Broncos fans when I say most of the time we felt like he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. I think, Blake, we even have a video of that touchdown pass.
No. Oh, you got to be kidding.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiffer got him free to the 30, to the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
Now, Commissioner Glenn, I'm sure we are both choked up, but for very different reasons after watching that.
Even now.
But even
Not cool.
after witnessing that, you held tight to what you believed in. Now, I know you are a huge sports memorabilia guy. So, believe it or not, that touchdown pass, that football that was used by the remarkable Tim Tebow, I was able to get that very football to deliver to you today. It even has the date on it as well as the score. I should be apologetic that it does resemble the actual score, not the score that you would have preferred. But I would like to give it to you. It's a little flat, so it might have actually come from New England first. It has the name Tom Brady on it, which is strange. You and I have always been able to joke about sports and give each other a hard time. I think my statistics certainly support all of the contentions I've made over the years. I also wanted to give you, and you asked me not to give you one Bronco item, so I will give you 2.
That's what I told you. See, that wasn't one. I was like, it's many.
I also wanted to give you a Broncos mug, so that when you leave the county, you have something to remind you of success, mostly the Broncos, but something that could also warm you as to your thoughts about your time with the county.
Nice.
Seriously, though, I want to thank you for all of our interactions. I have enjoyed you. I think we've always had very lively conversations. I think you've always supported the things that certainly my department has tried to achieve. most importantly, and I think this is something that the public should appreciate the most, you've always been a champion for public process and public engagement. And every time we brought an item to you on the land use calendar and you didn't feel like there was enough public process going into that hearing, you would kick it back and require that there was more public involvement. That is not a little thing. That's a big thing. That's what I think we're all tasked with, and it's a good reminder for all of us to continue to do that. So thank you for all your support to county staff, and in closing, go Broncos.
We'll put a letter in his file.
On to the
after this.
playoffs. Oh, it's brutal.
Commissioner Glenn, you know, as mentioned, thank you for all your support. There's one thing that has always stuck out in my mind, and it's something that Kendra and I hold on to and we talk about quite often. There was a day, and you probably remember this, where I was one of those crazy runner guys, and you know, every day after work I would probably go run 6-8 miles. There was a day in particular where Kendra talked me into running this Discovery Trail Marathon, which is a local marathon here down Santa Fe Trail. So I'm running this thing and not doing too well, and I finally get to America the Beautiful Park, and I see Darryl there running. And I think this was a great day for you as a father, because I believe that's the day your daughter qualified for the Boston Marathon. And you recognize me, and you come running up there, and you're like, hey, how are you doing? And you know, and I couldn't even talk, I was so tired. And your question was, did you qualify? And I think I qualified for the YMCA turkey trot. And there's an entrance fee to that one too. But I tell you what though, I sincerely appreciate your support that day in pushing me across the line. Your acknowledgement, and plus your, Steve, hey, you'll get this. You know, if that's a goal, keep going for it and things like that. But on a professional basis though, Darryl, I appreciate everything you have done for, again, me and my office, and I look forward to continue to work with you. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Good morning, President Glenn. Julie Crow, Executive Director of DHS. I also would like to thank you for all that you do for the Department of Human Services. Our staff appreciate you, and you've helped our children, youth, families, adults. We also appreciate that you have a special place in your heart for our victims of domestic violence and our clients that have been involved in the juvenile justice system. So thank you sincerely for that. One of the things that I've told you before, but I want to say again, is that if there's a critical incident at DHS, I notify Henry, Nicola, and President Glenn. And whenever that happens, the first thing that you ask is, how are the kids, and is everything okay with them? And you always ask also about our staff. You're calm, you recognize that they have difficult and challenging jobs, and you never forget to ask how they're doing and extend your thanks, and understand that sometimes they're going into dangerous situations, and you, I believe, genuinely care about them. So thank you for that. I also want to thank you for your excitement at our events, and that also includes Commissioner Littleton. I remember when we planted the giant pinwheel, when we have done all of our pinwheel plantings for Child Abuse Prevention Month, our human trafficking events. You've been there, you've been excited about the events, and a huge supporter of those events, so thank you so much for that. And thank you for all you've done to help the children, youth, families that we serve, and support our staff and provide the resources and everything that they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning again, Commissioners. President Glenn, Mike DeGrant, Wishop Communities, and immediate past president of HBA. Just want to thank you for your service to the community, your grassroots efforts on the Black Forest Fire, help for all the residents and community. We really appreciate that. And I can say personally, I'm going to miss our meetings every month this last year. Those were the highlight of my presidency of HBA, and I really appreciate your time at each one of those meetings. So thank you for what you've done. Thanks.
Henry Yankowski, County Administrator. President Glenn, it's been just such a pleasure to work with you, and as I stated before with Commissioner Littleton, I sure appreciate the confidence and your willingness to bring me over here and give me a chance at this county administrator job, and the support has been phenomenal. And I think I'm most impressed when we have our community corrections coordinating council meetings, and some of those have been very interesting. It's an area that I'm not that well versed in, and you are, and it's been very, very interesting and a lot of fun. So I'm gonna miss you.
And Mr. President, if I could jump in here, Amy Folsom, County Attorney. I'm going to ask Mr. Klafke and Mr. Hodges to come down and share a story. But on behalf of the County Attorney's Office, Commissioner, and myself personally, thank you so much for all of the support over the years. You know, people often ask me what it's like to work with different commissioners, and what's it like to work with Commissioner Glenn? And I always said, goodness, that man holds his cards very close to the chest, and that's certainly true. But I found, Commissioner, that when you play them with honesty, integrity, and conviction. I learned this as a newly minted county attorney, and I won't bore anyone with the details, but suffice it to say, I was put in an unenviable position of making a decision that affected a former member of Commissioner Glenn's family. As staff, that can be kind of stressful. The decision was made, the results were delivered to Commissioner Glenn, and without any fanfare whatsoever. And I don't know if you remember this, Commissioner, but I came into your office a couple days later, and I said, thank you. Thank you for the manner in which you handled this. And I don't know if you remember, but I'll always remember what you said to me at that time. And you said, Amy, I am the man I say I am. And I thought to myself, yep, you sure are. So thank you, Commissioner Glenn, for being that man. Thank you also for making sitting on a rubber exercise ball in the office cool. So we appreciate everything. Kenny and Steve?
I'm leaving that, but somebody's already claimed it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kenny Hodges, Senior Assistant County Attorney, and with me is Steve Klafke, Assistant County Attorney, otherwise probably known as Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I know we're always together. I'd echo a lot of what Amy said, and deviating from the process a little bit, my comments pertain to both Commissioners Glenn and Littleton. We really thank you for your leadership over the years and your friendship. The reason I didn't speak earlier is we were tracking down a piece of evidence. What I would like to comment.
I was going to say, you better be nice to us. We have stories on you.
I prefer it that way. Yeah.
What we wanted to comment on was not so much leadership capacity. I think everybody knows about that already, but Commissioners Glenn and Littleton know how to have a good time, and there's also a significant amount of athleticism on the board. There was an event on May 5th, 2017. Steve and I were invited to be on the Commissioners bowling team, and I'm a monumentally horrible bowler, so I was actually observing Commissioner Vanderwerf bowling, and I saw that he was taking kind of a deeper stance than I was. So toward the end of the night, I went and took my deep lunge for bowling, and I guttered it. And I was walking around thinking, it's a little cool in the bowling alley. I don't know why, it feels breezy in here. My pants had torn from about hip to knee. And I wandered around like that until luckily my buddy here caught me and mentioned to me that I probably want to run away as quickly as I can. So I took off, bowling shoes and all, wound up having to return the bowling shoes the next day. Commissioner Littleton had actually taken a picture holding my shoes, asking where I was. Unfortunately, we couldn't track that down this morning. But seriously, thank you both. We greatly appreciate it, and you'll be missed.
Thank you. That was fun. I've never seen a county attorney run so quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was funny.
President Glenn. Tim Walker, Director of Community Services. We also want to thank you for your calm, positive, and effective leadership, but also your great sense of humor as well. We come into rooms when we have difficult discussions, it really just lets the stress out of the room because of your sense of humor, so we greatly appreciate that. Also want to thank you for your caring attitude towards people who are having struggles in life, especially those involved in the criminal justice system. Your involvement with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council will be beneficial to the county for many years to come. But I think we have captured your most proudest moment at El Paso County. And so I have a plaque here for you.
Great to see what
this was winning the toy tractor pull at the 2015 County Fair. There was discussion that you started early. We had debates on that for years, but I think we've gotten past that. So, but anyway, that was a wonderful event. But anyway,
I'm proud of that.
Commissioner, thank you very much for everything. We greatly appreciate it.
Hey, I'm not too far behind considering I had a skirt on.
That's priceless.
Thought I'd make a grand entry and fall down the stairs. President Glenn, again, I want to echo my comments, and I appreciate your support to the department and my employees and your tenacity in following your leadership role and taking our department to a new level and making sure that we have the right equipment and tolerating some of our conversations on the new initiatives that we're taking to support the citizens of the county. I really appreciate those efforts, and you'll be missed in that role. I was thinking as Brother Reed was talking about the blinking yellow light incident there, I was actually a patrol deputy at the time, and I pulled him over because it looked very suspicious in that vehicle with a blinking yellow light and a taped on county sign on the door. I'm like, this has got to be a thief. Turns out it wasn't, but anyway, we enjoyed that very much. And I thoroughly appreciate your support as we interact with the citizens, sometimes on very difficult problems. And you know, sometimes they get a little animated when they cross the line. You make sure they're aware of that, and I appreciate it. You'll be missed. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
President Glenn, I'd just like to thank you for your support of the department throughout the years. And I remember going back, and it's been brought up before, but the Waldo Canyon fire and the Black Forest fire, and Commissioner Littleton as well. I was in a different role at the time, but worked hand in hand with each of you in some very difficult situations. And one thing that was very evident to me was how much you both cared about the citizens and the people who lost their homes. And neither of you ever failed to jump down and get in the weeds. And you know, there were a lot of meetings, a lot of involvement. And the neat thing about it, every time I left one of those meetings, I was able to walk away feeling proud of the process, proud of what we were accomplishing, and you both had a very big part in that. So I thank you on behalf of the department, and as a citizen of El Paso County, I also thank you for your service. So thank you.
President Glenn, I just want to thank you for your principled and professional leadership. It was a joy to work with you. I was there at many of those Black Forest meetings, and you did a masterful job of helping people move beyond. And that was a very, very tough time. I remember distinctly that the conversations were sort of repeatedly pulled back into a discussion, not very productive, that really amounted to sort of refighting the fire. And you were masterful, I believe, in helping people sort of vent their frustrations, but then move on. And it was a joy working with you, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I guess it's down to me again. Commissioner, I was thinking back through the last 8 years, and I know I made the previous comments about the both of you, but I was thinking last night, in all the difficulty and everything that we've gone through in the last 8 years, I have never heard you say a bad word about an individual, even despite all the different circumstances. And I think that is great integrity. You may, on occasion, just smile, but I think that carries the great integrity in which you lead, and to what Amy spoke to. The one thing that I really appreciate about you is obviously in the leadership role the last 2 years, you have been, as Craig said, all about process, and as Jim said, all about process. But you have, when I think of you, I think of inclusivity, if that's even a word. You have been inclusive of everybody, and your #1 initiative was to make sure, whether it was your fellow commissioners or staff, that you always made sure that everybody was included. They were not just brought to the table, they were not just advised of what was going on, but their input was desired and needed, and that they were part of the decision. And that is huge, and that has made things so much better for this organization, and for the staff, and for all of us. And one of the things that you may not know is, Commissioner Glenn has a great sense of humor. And over the last few years, there were several, I would say about every conversation that we had would end in extensive laughter, mostly on his part. And there were times where I would text something and I would follow up with a phone call, and he would pick up the phone answering just laughing before he would even say, "Nicola, are you kidding me?" And then you just provide me with such entertainment every single day, because of course these jobs are somewhat entertaining with what we deal with. And sometimes laughing so hard that I was, "Commissioner Glenn, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Do you want me to proceed this way or not?" So because of so much laughter. But much like the example that I gave with Commissioner Littleton, the example that I think of with you, Commissioner Glenn, goes back to the Black Forest fire, because I do recall that was really where you had your opportunity to shine. And as most of us know, during that incident, we gave two, at one point 3, I believe, press conferences a day, morning, midday, evening. And those press conferences were held up on the hill by the Pikes Peak Community College. And I know Commissioner Glenn, we would usually have, the sheriff would do an update, and then Commissioner Glenn would follow up with a second update. And then the cameras would stop rolling, everybody would disperse. But what you didn't see is that there were so many of those citizens that had been displaced, and quite frankly, they had nowhere else to go. So they would show up at those news conferences, and they would sit in their cars in the parking lot. They would wait, they would listen to everything, and they would wait to try to grab somebody who would spend the time to talk to them, that they could get additional information. And after everybody had left and the cameras stopped rolling and everybody went away, Commissioner Glenn would spend at least an hour after each one of those press conferences speaking to each one of those individuals, and getting their information, and then passing that along, and how can we help them, and then following up with them, personally calling them, having us call them. And then when it got to the point, as Jim said, to when we started into the recovery and the reentry, I recall very vividly Commissioner Glenn sitting at the head of that conference table and saying, "Okay, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I've heard, and this is how we are going to do this." And you were very strong and decisive, and you heard absolutely what your constituents had to say, and you delivered on that, and your mind was always focused on them, was always focused on doing the best thing that you could for them. And that's what I'll remember, and that's I think the moment that you were, that you really shined here as your time as commissioner. So thank you for your friendship, thank you for your leadership, and again, I will greatly miss you. And I may call you to talk about hair with Peggy, I don't know, we may.
You can call and talk to me about hair every day. Okay.
All right, I guess we'll bring it back up here.
Yes, I'll turn it over to you. I'll let you drive.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll take comments from the board up here. Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you. Well, Darryl, it has been a long 8 years, but a short 8 years. And it's been a pleasure serving with you. As you stated so many times at the beginning and throughout, standing on principle, doing the right thing, even though it was tough to do and had sometimes political consequences. It's been a pleasure. You are a man of few words, but when you do speak, they're powerful words. And I will say that we've gone through a lot, and I've watched not only you grow personally, but also I've watched your faith grow. And I've watched that really deepen and be shown to so many other people. And I'm so glad that you met Jane, and that she's your bride, and I think she complements you and completes you perfectly. I would say that you were my favorite U.S. Senate candidate, but that was me for a while. And then once I was out of the picture, you were my favorite U.S. Senate candidate, and I wish that you were serving in that role today. I think Colorado would be better served. But I wish you all the best. I know that God has a plan for your life, and He is going to move you forward to continue to be a light in a darkness for Him. So thank you for your service.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you. Commissioner Glenn, Darryl, it's been a pleasure to work with you on this board. And I'd like to characterize kind of some things that I have seen, and I'll talk about each of these a little bit. But what I have seen is I have witnessed service, fairness, and fun. And I think that's a great combination of skills and capabilities. The service is service to the country for over 20 years, and now you're a veteran. Service to the city as a city councilman, service to the county as a commissioner, and service to God because of your faith, but also service to so many other things that go on in our community, like service to law enforcement, where you've done so many things in this area, but that includes efforts to find alternatives to incarceration that were focused on rehabilitation so that those who have broken the law can be reintegrated back into society. And you've done an enormous amount of very important work in that area. I just think that's so important. And this service, while we can say you've served in a public capacity for over 20 years in our community, when you include the service in the military, it's 40 years plus. That you have served, and I just think that is an absolute testament to the service. Fairness. You know, you have done stellar work as president of this board. You have been an absolute professional with us with this. You have helped us navigate through many tough decisions over the last 2 years. And you have given, whether it was an executive session or here on the dais, you have always given everybody a chance to say their piece and make their points so that we as a board can deliberate over those issues. And you enforced that, but you did it in such a way that it didn't look like it was being enforced. It looked like, hey, let's work together, and I have really, really appreciated that. I really, truly believe that your leadership on this board has done so much to keep this board out of directions that it could have gone that could have ended up in controversy, but we didn't go there because you were the president of this board. That is a great thing to have, and you know that we don't have that much controversy on this board because, well, sometimes we make some pretty important decisions up here and it doesn't even get into the press. So I just think that you can see it for all of that. And then fun. I really had a fun time being on that bowling team with you. That was a blast, and those glasses were fantastic. But it's been more than that also. It also has been, you know, your effervescence and your willingness to kind of throw a joke into a conversation, always helping to break the ice or maybe break some tension. And I think you've been doing that on purpose, and I think it's been part of your nature for a very long time. I'll tell you what, I have appreciated that very much. And then my last point is your athleticism. And I'll just say one thing. I think what that really means is don't mess with Darryl because he'll just put you in a headlock or something, and then you'll have to come around to whatever you need to work on at that point. But I have appreciated these things from you: service, fairness, and fun. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I've really enjoyed working with you over the last 2 years. I'm looking forward to bigger and better things as you move on in your life, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. President, I think Amy summed it up perfectly. said you kind of hold those cards close to your vest, and I think that that's something that you've done. You know, you're not going to speak until you're ready to speak about an issue, and I've actually always appreciated that very much about you. But I think what she said about being honest, having integrity, working with this inclusivity, and also working transparently is absolutely spot on about your character. I think that is that's something that I've admired, and it's something that I hope I can carry forward on this board, and to make sure that we're doing things in the best and most productive way possible, not for us, but for the members of our community. I'll tell you, those characteristics, you know, they may sound like something that you know, we should all have, and we should. It's something that we should all embody. But I've been doing this. I've been in this business now for about a decade, and I'll tell you, there aren't very many elected officials out there that embody integrity and honesty. And I think that you are absolutely the epitome and the example for others to follow. You know, I haven't asked you to be a mentor to me, but believe it or not, I think that's you've done that for me pretty significantly over the last couple of years. And yeah, you got me calmed down with the fidget spinner finally. I think that's been a great thing as well. But I'll tell you, it's been my absolute pleasure to serve with you. I have thoroughly enjoyed the last 2 years, and I think that it's been a great thing that you've been the leader of this board for those entire 2 years. We are in a better place than we were before you became our leader. I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to continue on this legacy and growing where we are moving forward. Thank you so much for your leadership and your dedication and commitment to the citizens of El Paso County.
Thank you. I guess it's rebuttal time. Well, 3 things I wanted to touch on. First, for my colleagues, thank you. It's been a pleasure. You know, it's always, I touched on earlier about, you know, when Commissioner Littleton and I entered the other board, and those initial steps are so important. And being able to have that transition, and it is so important. And I encourage you with the new members of this board to do the same, to invite people in, to insist on transparency, to recognize that they have been elected to serve, to treat people with respect, and to listen to one another. You're going to disagree. You don't always have to agree, but it's how you do it. And if you have a problem, go into the room and talk about it. But when you're here, remember your professionalism. And that's extremely important. And you guys are, I'm so proud of this county. You are in good hands. There's some good people that are coming onto the board and good people here. The second thing I want to talk to is staff. And it makes me think back to my mom. My mom's one of the most toughest, honorary women you've ever met. She is retired Army lieutenant colonel, and she will remind you of that. And, she's about what you do. She doesn't care about what you say. It's extremely important to walk your talk, and that's how she raised me. And when I think about staff and how difficult your jobs are, it was never more memorialized during the natural disasters we had. These are things that people don't hear about, talk about. The things that they were doing on their time, making sandwiches, staying up late to work financial numbers to ensure that we had the ability to take care of people, going above and beyond, working hours at a time when the camera is not there. So it's not about what they say, it's about what they do. And the one thing that I wanted to insist on was that we took care of our staff. And they just do not get enough support. It's so important that this community understands and appreciates how hard you work. The last thing I want to focus on is my wife, who's sitting over there. It's a firecracker. I kind of alluded to it at the State of the Region. She came into my life at a very difficult time. She is the spiritual rock of the family. And when you hear me preach on and on about, taking care of people, it's because of her. Because she has instilled that in me. And she has reminded me of the thing that I have always talked about and still believe. And that no matter what we do, we have to be able to say, who do we serve? And be able to have an answer to that. And I can tell you, just kind of inside baseball, for lack of a better way of saying that, when you are running and involved in politics, it's very easy to come to a fork in the road and you have to make a decision. It is easy to be popular. It is easy, and I firmly believe, when I look at some of these elections, that if I had made decisions to go certain ways, it would be easy. But that's not what we're about. My wife and I have talked about this. We've had deep discussions with our team during the campaign and about how we want to represent this community. And it is, too often, people take the easy way out. Too often, people want to be liked. But we, every day, live to answer that question. And it's so important that, for me, what has been instilled in me through my childhood, through my being a parent, and also with the support from my wife, is you have to stand for something. And you have to be willing to make those decisions where, when you're faced, you have to remember your family. And are you going to represent your family? Are you going to represent your community? And are you going to represent your faith? And I am just so honored that she has helped me focus in on that, because at the end of the day, when all the noise is gone, that's what it's about. I'm not going to turn this into a sermon, because I certainly could. But it is something that, when I think about what we have to do and the challenges that we are facing as a community, we tend to forget that. And it is so easy, and I don't thank her enough, because, yeah, people say, yeah, you're quiet, you hold things close to your vest, but she understands me behind closed doors. She understands that it is so tempting to respond. It's so tempting when they attack your character, when they attack your family, but there is nothing easier in my life than to, at the end of the day, to remember that I'm tethered to my faith. And that is what has gotten me through this. And I thank all of that because of her.
Would you like me to call the roll?
Yes.
Mr. President.
Aye.
Commissioner Littleton.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
The President Pro Tem votes aye. That passes unanimously with Commissioner Gonzalez excused. And before we take a recess, we have a little video tribute to show, and I think that's the appropriate time to do that.
job. We'll stand in recess and take a photo, and then we will have a brief reception afterwards.